Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Energy Fix podcast. I am so happy you're here. Thank you for tuning back in. I'm your host, Tansy Rogers, and today I wanted to do something just a little bit different. This is a solo episode, and I really wanted this one to feel like a pause, not another lesson that you have to absorb, not another thing that you need to add to your to-do list, just a pause. This is more of a mid-year breath. This time of the year can feel like there's so much going on because somehow, here we are halfway through the year. All of these things that you were trying to work on and accomplish, we're halfway through. And here in the US where I'm at, summer energy is really kicking up. Schedules are changing, routines may feel wobbly. There may be this interesting mix of pressure and exhaustion and overstimulation. And for some people, summer feels expansive and fun. But for others, especially sensitive humans, over responsible humans, business owners, caregivers, parents, creatives, and those of us who really tend to feel everything super deeply, summer can feel like a whole lot. It can feel like more noise, more plans, more people needing things, more changes in routine, more pressure to be available, more pressure to be fun, more pressure to make the most out of it. And honestly, sometimes your nervous system is just sitting right there on the corner, like, maybe could we not? Because I'm already overstimulated. And so today, I don't want to talk about pushing harder, and I don't want to talk about productivity. I don't want to talk about becoming some perfectly optimized version of yourself, because this second half of the year, you're really beginning to take hold into where you are trying to expand into. And so, with the first half of the year already through, again, it doesn't matter if this is summertime for you or not. This could be any time of the year, but no matter where you're at, you're halfway through. And that means you've been working on a lot of things. And maybe your nervous system, maybe your stimulation is feeling very overwhelmed. So today, I want to ask you a really honest question. What are you done carrying? What are you done carrying? Now, before we get into that, I would love for you to subscribe or follow the show wherever it is that you're listening to this. And if this episode speaks to you, please take a second to like it, rate it, or share it with someone that you may need, that you know may need this kind of mid-year reset. It really does help the show reach more people, and it helps these conversations find the sensitive, burned out, searching kind of human beings, maybe just like yourself, who really need to hear this right now. So, in advance, thank you so much. All right, so let's come back to that question. What are you done carrying? Not what are you behind on? Not what do you still need to fix? And definitely not what did you promise yourself in January that you haven't done yet. That's not what I'm talking about. We're not talking about how to squeeze more into life that already feels full. We're actually talking about quite the opposite. And that is, what are you done carrying that may not actually belong to this next season of your life? It's so important to evaluate that every so often because sometimes we are not tired because we're weak. It's definitely not that. Sometimes we're not scattered because we're lazy. Sometimes we are not overwhelmed because we are bad at life or missing some magical morning routine that will finally make us feel like a functional, full human being. Sometimes we're just tired. And sometimes we're tired because we're carrying too much stuff. And some of what we're carrying may have made sense at one point. It may have protected us and it may have made us feel like we belonged. It may have helped us to keep the peace, to survive a hard season of our lives, or to avoid conflict, or to feel safe, or to feel in control. All of that's normal. But just because something helped you survive a previous season doesn't mean that it's meant to come with you forever, right? Sometimes that is where we really need to reevaluate. And that is where I want you to sit today. We're not sitting in judgment or shame or thinking that maybe you should have done better. That's not where we're at. We're in a place where we're going to be in reflection, honest reflection. And that is you asking yourself very lovingly, is this still mine to carry? Is this still mine to carry? Because sometimes the thing weighing us down is not the obvious thing. It is not always the schedule, the work, the errands, the caregiving, the business, the home, or the responsibilities. Sometimes the real weight is the invisible layer that lays underneath all of it. It could look like the pressure to keep being who everyone else expects you to be. It is the emotional labor of making sure nobody is actually disappointed. That's exhausting. It's so exhausting. It could be the old belief that you have to over explain your choices so that people understand them. And what I see so common is that pattern of saying yes because no feels too uncomfortable. Yeah, guilty of it myself too. Yeah, for sure. It is the version of you that has learned to be easy, agreeable, helpful, responsible, low maintenance, and quiet about what your own needs actually are. And when you're sensitive, empathic, intuitive, neurodivergent, or someone who has spent a lifetime reading rooms before actually reading yourself, can become so automatic that you may not even take notice how much energy is taking up from you. You just feel tired or foggy or irritated by things that normally wouldn't bother you. You could feel resentful, and then you feel this guilty feeling for feeling resentful. It's just all so exhausting. Maybe you move into this place where you feel like you want space, but then you feel bad for wanting space. And you know that you need to say something. You know that you do, but you keep rewriting it in your head until your brain has turned a two-sentence conversation into this whole paragraph that doesn't actually need to happen. And it probably won't actually happen. Yeah, again, guilty, been there, done that, still do that sometimes myself. What I'm trying to say is that all of this just takes so much energy, so much energy. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. A lot of it in my own life, actually, because I've been in a season where I am being asked to use my voice in clearer ways, not louder necessarily, not harsher or in ways that need to prove anything, just more clear, more honest and more rooted and grounded, more willing to let the truth be the truth without wrapping it in these layers of softness that I think that I need to put there because I don't want anybody to be uncomfortable. And it's not always easy. I will say that firsthand, it is not always easy because for many of us, and myself included at times, holding back can just feel safer than actually speaking. Softening can feel safer than being clear, and waiting can feel safer than choosing. When you stay in the old version of yourself, it can feel safer than actually letting the new version step forward and be seen and be present and be heard. You know, I found that even when we want growth, the body may not always experience growth as comfortable. Sometimes the next chapter, the next invitation, the next brave step can bring up so much fear and triggering. And it's not because it's wrong, it's just because it's unfamiliar. And that is something I wish more people talked about. It's so easy to fall in this trap of goals and moving forward and speaking your truths and setting boundaries, but not enough people talk about how uncomfortable that expansion is. Sometimes your expansion does not feel like glitter and confidence. Sometimes expansion feels like your nervous system is screaming at you and asking, "Are you sure we're safe? Are you sure that we're allowed to do this? Are you sure?" All while you're trembling, right? And sometimes it can feel like resistance. Sometimes it can feel like procrastination. Sometimes it can feel like body tension and heaviness and fatigue or second guessing. Sometimes it feels like wanting to be seen and wanting to hide under a weighted blanket at the exact same time. Yeah, been there. Yeah. And if that is you too, I want you to know that doesn't mean that you are failing or falling behind. It just simply means that an older part of you is trying to come along into a season where she may not be in charge anymore. She's just not in charge. The old version of you may have been trained to keep the peace. Maybe it's been trained to learn that being needed was safer than actually being honest and using your voice. The old version may have learned that other people's comfort mattered more than your own comfort. You may have learned to make yourself smaller so nobody would leave or criticize or question or misunderstand or judge you. It's all normal. So when you begin to speak more clearly, choose more honesty, or just stop carrying what was never yours, that part of you, it may start to panic a little bit. And it may start to panic not so quietly. But all of this, I will say, we just need to step back and meet that part with compassion, not to let her run the whole show, but not to shame her either, because she probably worked really hard to keep you safe. But now, maybe the question is just different. Maybe it's not, am I going to be safe? Maybe it's not, am I going to be totally okay, grounded on my own 2 feet? Maybe the new question, one that will help you to really expand and evolve into this next season is, do I still need to carry all of that? Does the old version of me still need to carry all of that? Does the old version still need to be the one managing everyone else's emotions? Does she still need to soften every truth that she tries to speak? Does she still need to wait for permission to speak or to say what she needs to say? Does she still need to say yes when the whole body is asking for no? Does she really still need to be here in this new version? And that is exactly why we're here at this mid-year reset, because it can be so incredibly powerful. Instead of asking, am I doing enough? Ask yourself, am I being honest with myself about what is actually draining me? Because here's the key thing that I want to drive home. These energy leaks that we're talking about, all of these energy leaks, these things that have been holding us back, they're not always dramatic. They're often, usually really quiet. You know, it's so interesting. So many sessions that I have with clients, this comes up a lot. to reevaluate where the energy is actually being leaked out. And often it's not the big stuff. Sometimes it is the small little tiny things that you don't even think about. These things may show up when you keep a commitment that is no longer feeling aligned, but you do not want to disappoint anybody else. They may show up when you answer the message immediately, even though you're depleted because you feel responsible for somebody else's reaction. They may show up when you are standing there face to face with somebody and you're saying, it's fine, it's fine. And then you step back and you carry that unspoken truth in your jaw and your throat and your stomach and your shoulders or in how you're sleeping that is actually not fine. And I'm not doing fine with what I'm speaking. Yeah, these energy leaks, they can show up when you keep trying to become confident before you take action. When confidence is often built by taking action, that's when they may show up. They show up when you keep waiting for clarity to feel completely calm, or, when sometimes clarity actually arrives when you have that shaky voice or those sweaty palms, or you feel like you're going to throw up. Sometimes that's when confidence actually steps in and takes over. And that's the cool thing. That's the exciting thing. Yeah. When your body knows something before your mind is actually ready to admit it. That is the interesting thing about all this. The body is so intuitive and so understanding of what it needs. And honestly, I think it is one of the most tender places that we can find ourselves when our body knows, when our body knows what it needs, when there is a truth inside of you that hasn't been spoken yet, like you're right there on that cusp, when there is a decision that just keeps circling back, again, you're right on that cusp. When there's a boundary that your body has already made, but your mouth hasn't caught up yet and it hasn't had enough confidence to actually speak it. Oh, yeah. When there is a version of you asking for more space and more honesty and more expression and more courage, but the older version of you is still trying to keep everything contained and manageable. That's where the magic really happens. But also, all of that is where the exhaustion can live because you're right there on that cusp. Sometimes the most exhausting thing is not the actual thing itself. It is the amount of energy that you're using to keep yourself from admitting what you already know and from saying the thing or doing the thing and taking the leap and being right there in that middle spot, that middle area. That's where the deep work really comes in. That is where that surface level can just be pushed to the wayside, right? All of the just think positive or fake it till you make it or all of that stuff, that is the stuff that could actually hold you back. Yeah, we need to step into the deep work. All of that other stuff is the kind of work where you have to sit with yourself and ask, where am I betraying my own energy to keep an old pattern alive? Like, get to the root of it, right? And I know that that may sound strong, but I say it with so much compassion because most of us do not do this because we're trying to hurt ourselves. We do it because we've learned it. We learned to be good. We learned to be helpful. We learn to be understanding and to anticipate, and we learn to keep going, to keep pushing, to keep working. We learned to be the one who could handle it all. But just because you can handle something does not mean it is yours to hold forever. I want to reemphasize that. Just because you learned something doesn't mean that it's yours to hold forever. This is a sentence I really want you to breathe into right now because it's that important. Just because you can handle it doesn't mean that it's yours to hold forever. Mm. So much of healing, especially for those of us who have lived in high responsibility, high sensitivity, or chronic stress, is learning the difference between capacity and alignment. And there's a big difference here. Yes, you may have the capacity to do the thing, to hold the thing, to manage the thing, to tolerate the thing, to organize the thing, or to fix it. You may have all the capacity in the world, but is it aligned? Hmm. Is it honest? Is it nourishing to your soul? And is it still yours? That's where I want you to come back to. Is it still yours or are you carrying it? Because an old version of you signed a contract with your current self that would never actually agree to that. This is where I want to bring in the throat chakra and the solar plexus because these two energy centers feel so connected to this conversation, so deeply connected. The throat chakra is connected to truth, expression, communication, and being heard, truly heard. It is the way that your inner knowing gets to move outward. It is your creativity. It is not just about talking, it's about expressing in general, expressing what is real. It's about saying what needs to be said with clarity and care and integrity. It is about not swallowing your needs until they turn into resentment or body tension. When the throat chakra feels restricted, you may find yourself overthinking every word, every single word, and then avoiding the conversation. You may find yourself softening your truth until it barely resembles what you actually mean, or simply saying, I'm fine, when you clearly and absolutely are not fine. And sometimes the body reflects this through jaw tension, neck tightness, throat pressure, or that feeling of words being stuck somewhere between your heart and your mouth, which then we're going to connect into the solar plexus. That's where the solar plexus really comes in. And this is connected to confidence and self trust and identity and personal power, choice, willpower, aligned action. This is the part of your energy that helps you say, I know who I am. I trust what I know. I am allowed to choose. I am allowed to take up space. And I surely am allowed to act from my own inner authority. Now, when the solar plexus feels a little wobbly or blocked, you may look outside yourself for that permission. You may start to second guess your decisions you've already felt in your body as truth. You may feel guilty for having needs, or maybe you struggle with boundaries, not because you don't know what the boundary is, but because holding the boundary asks you to tolerate someone else's discomfort. And that can be really hard. And that is where these two energy centers work together so beautifully. Yeah. Ooh, I love these two together because the solar plexus helps you to trust what you know. The throat chakra helps you to express what you know. So you can have a truth rising up in your body, but if your solar plexus is feeling a little shaky or challenged, you may not trust yourself enough to actually say it and to choose it. And if your throat chakra is feeling restricted, you may not feel safe enough to say what you need to say, to express that confidence and to actually let that come out so that you're moving some of that energy. I have found that this is why so many people feel stuck, even when they technically know what they need to do. They are not always lacking the information. They may simply be lacking the safety or the self trust, the support, or that permission from within themselves. And that is why the work is not always to gather more advice or more information. Sometimes the work is to come back into relationship with your own inner knowing. Yeah, your own inner knowing. Because when you do that, you can start to express a little bit more confidently. Have you ever asked yourself, I don't understand. I usually can use my voice so well, but when I am in this situation that triggers me, all of a sudden, I can't use my voice. I can't say what I need to say. I can't say what I want to say. This is why. Because when one shuts down, it directly influences the other. And if you are familiar with the Energy Fix podcast and you're familiar with me and my work, you're going to know that I love bringing crystal support into this. And so this is where crystal support can be so incredibly beautiful. I want to talk about that. Crystals can be beautiful anchors and beautiful reminders in this work. They can help us to connect with an energy that we're choosing to strengthen and to help support and give the body something tangible to really return to. They can help us pause and remember that this is why I'm practicing. This is who I'm becoming. This is the energy that I'm choosing to call back to myself. They can also connect in with your energy field and become a support system energetically to help bring you into the space, the place that you are trying to step into, but maybe are feeling a little stuck to do so. There are three main crystals that I want to bring into this conversation today because I feel that they work so beautifully in this conversation. So the first one is aquamarine. Aquamarine is such a beautiful stone for the throat chakra because it carries this energy of calm and clear truth. And it really steps in not in a forceful way or a reactive way. It's not stepping in to calm down in a cutting way, but it steps in just to soften. It's about communication that feels honest and clean and grounded and balanced. It can really be a beautiful stone to support when you know something needs to be said, but your nervous system is a little activated around actually saying it. It can be supportive when you want to stop over explaining, to stop apologizing for your needs, and to stop wrapping your truth in so many layers that even you find it challenging to find out what that truth actually is. Now, if there was a reflection that I would pair with aquamarine to really bring this full circle, it would be, what truth can I express more clearly? And maybe even deeper than that, if we want to take it below the surface even deeper, where have I made my truth more complicated because I am afraid of how simple it actually is? Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Because sometimes the truth is really super simple. It may not be easy at all, but it's simple. And even though it's simple, the mind can still come in and test you. It can find all the possible ways to be misunderstood. But underneath all of that, there may still be a very clean, clear truth that's asking to be spoken. Okay, crystal number 2 is citrine. This one feels so deeply connected to the solar plexus energy because it brings together self trust and this grounded courage. Citrine carries this beautiful energy of confidence and worthiness, joy, abundance, and remembering your own inner light. But I don't often think of citrine as a fake confidence. It's not that kind of confidence where you have to pretend that you have it all together. It's much more real and authentic. It's much more open and allows you to see some of that messy middle, but to still walk forward regardless. I think of citrine as the energy of remembering that you are allowed to choose yourself and you're allowed to do it with confidence. You're allowed to want what you want, and you're allowed to need what you need, and you're allowed to stop asking everyone else's comfort for permission to actually honor your own truth. You're allowed to want it, and there is that confidence under the surface. And for those of us who have spent a lot of time checking the room and checking the reactions and checking the tones of what's going on around you, citrine can feel like this beautiful invitation right back to the center of yourself, kind of calling you back in. Now, if we are bringing a question to align with citrine that you can ask to help open up more insightful inspiration, that would be, what would I choose if I trusted myself? Ooh, that is such a deep question, a simple but yet deep question. Crystal number 3 that I would recommend for this conversation is tiger's eye. Tiger's eye is really this deep grounded courage, this deep grounded courage to actually move and push forward. Because insight matters here. But at some point, insight has to become action, right? We need to have the insight, but we have to have the courage to actually put it into action. It doesn't have to be huge action or restless action. We're not asking you to burn it all down. We're just asking you to be in honesty with yourself and taking that honest action forward. Tiger's eye feels really steady to me. It feels like courage with roots. It feels like the kind of bravery that says, you know what? I am scared. I am scared, but yet I can still take the next step. It doesn't feel frantic. It doesn't feel like you have to prove anything. It just feels super grounded and practical, which is one reason I love Tiger's eyes so much. It's that energy of moving forward with staying connected to yourself. And that is what many of us need in this second half of the year. We don't need more pressure. We don't need more perfection or more knowledge or more overthinking. We just need that reevaluation and to do it in a grounded way that helps to bring that brave movement forward. We have to have that honest conversation with ourselves, right? Having more of a clear, clean no rather than one that's just kind of teetering on the side, one that's made from self trust, one that we're not leaking energy all over the place, one place where we stop carrying what was never actually ours. And so, if you, before we go into actually guiding through some reflection questions, which I want to get to in just a second, if you are interested in connecting into wearable crystals that go directly with these crystals I recommended today, then I would recommend heading over to beucrystals.com. I have two main pieces over there that I want to just highlight because they're so perfect for this conversation. The first one is actually the earrings I'm wearing right now. If you're watching this episode then you'll actually get to see them. But they're called Say It Clean, Not Sharp. And we're using aquamarine in these pieces. And the other piece that has the tiger's eye and the citrine over at beucrystals.com is the self-esteem bracelet. So if you're interested in wearable crystals, those two are specifically designed, well, everything over there is specifically designed using numerology and geometry and symbolism and crystal energy, infusing everything with Reiki healing energy to really bring a wearable anchor, an energy bomb, I like to call it. An energy bomb. Yeah, yeah. So head on over there if that interests you, and you can check out everything that is over on the site at this time. Now, I want to guide you through a few reflection questions that you can take with you. If you're driving, walking, cooking, or doing something where you need your eyes open, please keep your eyes open. We're not turning this into any kind of an accident, right? But you can still let these questions move through you if you're not able to actually close your eyes and be in reflection. But if you are somewhere quiet, you might place a hand on your heart or on your belly, or just simply take a deeper breath and let yourself listen from the inside. And as you do that, I want you to start asking yourself some questions. And remember, you can pause this. You can pause this after you get some of the inspirations coming through and jot down what does come through if you would like to do that. Or you can just simply be here right now and just let the inspiration, the downloads, the thoughts, the inner knowings move through you. All right. So I want you to ask yourself, what am I done carrying into the second half of this year? Question number two, what role, expectation, responsibility, or old identity feels too heavy now? Question number three, where am I saying yes from guilt instead of from truth? Question number four, where have I been holding back my voice? Question number five, what conversation am I carrying in my body because I have not had the ability to say it out loud? Question number six, what decision do I already know, even if I have not wanted to admit it to myself? Question number seven, where am I waiting for permission that I may never receive from someone else? What would feel lighter if I stopped negotiating with my own knowing? And finally, last question. What is one small, grounded, brave step that I can take this week? Just one. And as you sit with these questions, I do encourage you to be with them, write down at some point, if you haven't done that now, write down and take some notes and just see what comes through. But as you sit with them, I want you just to allow that time to be truly honest with yourself. Because the second half of the year does not require you to become this brand new person. It just requires you to simply ask yourself some of these really important, deep questions about what you want to stop doing. what you want to shift and transmute, what roles or patterns or expectations or old stories you're just tired of carrying along with you. Like what just no longer fits? Because sometimes the next season begins when you tell the truth. Sometimes it begins when you stop apologizing for the boundary that you're setting. Sometimes it begins when you let the old version of you finally retire from a job that she was never meant to keep forever, nor does she actually want to keep forever. Sometimes it begins when you finally admit to yourself that you're not available for this anymore. You're just simply not available. And to that, I want to just gently say, you do not have to know exactly what comes next. You don't. You don't need to know what comes next to know what is no longer feeling aligned. Because sometimes we stay so stuck because we think that we need the whole map before we can release the old weight. But often the release comes first. The clarity comes after there is enough space for it to arrive. And so as you move through this week, I want you to stay close to this question, to all of the questions really, but this one in particular. What am I done carrying? Goes right to the very beginning. What am I done carrying? And remember, if one of the crystal energies from today stood out to you, pay attention to that. Maybe aquamarine is calling you in to clear communication. Maybe citrine is reminding you that your needs and your choices and your desires actually matter. And maybe tiger's eye is helping you to take the next step without abandoning your body in the process, helping you to be grounded in your confidence. And if you want to work with those energies in that tangible way, I'll make sure to link the pieces that I mentioned down in the show notes. The Say It Clean, Not Sharp earrings, and the self esteem bracelet. So make sure you jump on down there. You can also find a lot of other resources that may help you on this journey of yours. Your voice matters, your energy matters. You're knowing what you actually need, it matters. And you are allowed to stop carrying what is keeping you from living in that place. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Thank you so much for taking this journey and for also being strong and brave to even reevaluate, to pause and take that moment to reevaluate. If this episode gave you a little nudge, or it helped you to feel lighter, or you had one of those aha moments, I ask please subscribe, like, rate, share it with someone that you know is going to need this mid-year reset too. And until next time, keep spreading that beautiful energy you were born to share.